Hello fellow super builders, just a quick one this week. Again, unfortunately no real-time functionality because actually, last time I went down kind of trying to plot leaflet sort of to the map and draw the location points. And that actually got me thinking, because I hadn't been working with maps in a long time, how do you actually, what's the best way to paint a map to a Next.js app? And a couple actually pointed out to me that there's a really cool open source project called Protomaps. And so I ended up going down a rabbit hole on Protomaps, and actually I rediscovered how much I love maps. So maps are actually really, really cool. And Protomaps specifically is an open source system for interactive web maps, like this one, for example. So you can scroll in. You can have different layers, but what it also is, it's a collection of tools that actually allows you to cut out a region from the world and self-host your maps. And so if you look at kind of getting started, you can sort of dive in and you can kind of get, so, PMTiles is sort of a file format that allow you to kind of host a static map file. And then actually use HTTP range requests to sort of access the different, parts of the map dynamically as you sort of load through. But what the cool thing is, you can use this tool to actually extract a certain area from the map, because the whole sort of open source OpenStreetMap file, for example, is like 100 gigabytes, right? And so, if you want to self-host, like if you only need a specific small region, so for example, for me, the race will happen in like a small region of the world, we're paddling sort of in Singapore, for example. So I only need like a cutout of a small area of Singapore. And so I actually did that. I used that tool to cut out kind of a small region of Singapore. And what I got was kind of this small here. You can see it's like a 3 megabyte file, of my map. So that's fairly small. So if I actually want to serve that, so there's some documentation on that here for kind of hosting this in cloud storage. And there's some things that you need. So for example, S3 compatible cloud storage that supports HTTP range requests and cross-origin resource sharing. So the thing is that Supabase storage is, kind of built on top of S3. So S3 compatible, and it actually already enables kind of all these range requests and cross-origin. So what I did was basically just, throw that in here. You can click to like get the URL. And then the way this works in your application, so here I'm just using MapLibre and React Map GL, and then you can import like the PMTiles protocol. You just kind of need to, as this mount, sort of add the PMTiles protocol to MapLibre. And then what you can do is you can actually put your map and you can load it from a URL, and you can put in your Supabase storage URL. So this is the way it works. You say the PMTiles protocol, and then you just put where the static file is hosted. And then what you can do is you can load your app and it just works. So you can see here now, as you zoom in, we don't have the details apart from that small area in Singapore. So, this is kind of where the cutout comes in. So we don't have kind of this details, but that's why the file itself is only 3 megabyte, right? Like that's pretty small. And so this is where we're paddling in Singapore, around Sentosa, the Southern Islands. And you can see that, like, as I'm zooming in here, we're firing off these fetch requests, these partial range requests, and we're actually getting back sort of that part of the map. So it just works out of the box without any configuration. Now, one downside to that is, right, because what I did here is just created a public storage bucket. Maybe you can zoom in here a little bit. So obviously, if anyone were to take this and put kind of this into the application, they would be able to basically host the static map from you, right? So we don't want that. So what I was looking at is actually serving this from a private bucket. So here we have a private bucket. Now the problem is obviously if we go in here and we just get the URL, you can expire it. But so if we just were to go in and we would say maps private, then obviously that wouldn't work, and it would say okay 400 that kind of doesn't exist. So what we actually can do is we can write an edge function, and it's just called maps private. And so basically we just need to make sure we're adding kind of a bunch of our course headers, and I'll put a link to this so you can kind of check it out. So our course headers, we need to make sure we serve the options request. And then what we're doing here is basically we're just taking the URL that came in, and then we're making that a new URL, and then we're basically constructing our storage URL by just using the Supabase URL. And so the way we can actually access a private, so you can see that here, serving access from assets from storage, you can actually serve from private buckets with GET requests by going to the object authenticated and to add the authorization header. And so without any, RLS policies, because here we're serving this, publicly on the API route. So what we're doing is basically we're just proxying it through this edge function, and we're just creating a new headers. We're appending the authorization header with our service role key, right? And then what we can do is we can just deploy that to our edge function. So here we have our maps private edge function. And so we can copy the URL and we can go to our page. We're just replacing this. And then we have our maps private Singapore tiles. So we give that save. So now when we go back and we reload our page, you can see now again we're serving our OC tiles, but this time we're now serving it here from our edge function maps private. And so, for example, if now someone else, we only have Singapore here, but now we have here this in our edge function we have this allowed origins. So now, for example, if we change that to 8,000 and we went ahead and we redeployed our function, so now obviously our localhost 3000 wouldn't be in the allowed origins anymore. And so you see now that the map isn't actually being served, but rather we're returning the 405 here, not allowed. So actually with like a fairly simple edge function, we can just proxy our requests to storage and authenticate it. So actually, I'll, bit of a rabbit hole here, but a really, really exciting one. So I'll actually go and I'll add that to the Protomap docs, Protomap maps docs, because I think that's pretty useful. You can just drop it in your Supabase storage and then proxy it through edge function. So actually that's what we did as well. Host PMTiles on Supabase storage and proxy through edge functions. Cool. So yeah, that's what we did this week. Again, as always, keep on building, keep building cool stuff, as John Mayers would say, and do share, what you're building with the Superbuilders hashtag and maybe the Build in Public hashtag. And I'd love to see what you're working on, and I'll keep you updated on what I'm doing here. And yes, see you next week. Bye-bye.